Welcome back. Are women being disproportionately affected by the COVID-19 virus as compared to men? The director of PAHO says as the many effects of COVID-19 continue to come to light, this definitely looks like the case.
In St. Lucia, it appears that a lot more females have been confirmed with the COVID-19 virus than men. According to the Pan American Health Association, there may be many reasons for this. The director of PAHO, Dr. Carissa Etienne, says a deep look needs to be taken into the gender dimensions of the COVID-19 pandemic. She says, while in the beginning it may have seemed that a lot more men were testing positive for the virus, that has quickly changed.
Early in the pandemic, we saw that men were more likely to become sick with COVID-19. There were many reasons for this. Men were more likely to hold jobs that left them exposed to the virus and more likely to suffer from underlying conditions like diabetes and hypertension that make them more susceptible to severe COVID infections. As with other diseases, men often delay seeking help, leaving them more vulnerable to serious COVID illness that required hospitalizations.
Dr. Etienne explained that almost 70% of the female working population are either on the front line or in a position that puts them in direct contact with the virus in one way or another. She says, in addition to the health risks brought on by the pandemic, women have to deal with major socioeconomic effects.
Women are invariably caretakers across our region. And as schools closed and lockdowns were imposed, the burden of care has fallen on mothers and grandmothers alike. Many women have been forced to leave their jobs to care for their families during this pandemic, impacting both their income and their well-being. And the ongoing stay-at-home measures, coupled with the added economic strains, are increasing the risk of domestic violence. For too many women, home is not a safe space.
According to Etienne, the onus is now on the respective countries to ensure that women are present when recovery efforts are being made, as the virus has affected them differently.
Countries must recognize and respond to the gender dynamics of this outbreak. This starts with ensuring that women and girls can access the health services that they need, especially during this time of crisis. This includes gender violence hotlines and sexual and reproductive health services, which are essential services. By leveraging telehealth, leaning on community health workers, and making care available outside of hospital settings, health systems can ensure that women receive the care that they deserve.
She says, while it will definitely take a team effort, policies during the recovery process should not just be for women, but by women. Reporting for Hot 7 News, I am Genevieve Gonzague.
Regional air carrier Liat has called on the region's governments to aid the company with the paying of over 90% of staff who have been laid off. The court-approved administrator has written to various CARICOM heads warning that they may be exposed legally if some effort is not made to pay the affected workers. The National Workers Union, the bargaining body for Liat workers in St. Lucia, says regardless of who has to pay the bulk of severances, something has to give, and soon.
Over 500 Liat employees have been terminated. As the saga continues with the payment of these workers, a new twist has been revealed. The court-approved administrator of Liat has written a letter to 9 CARICOM heads of government, including St. Lucia, informing them that they could be exposed legally unless some effort is made to pay the affected workers. The National Workers Union, the bargaining agent for Liat workers in St. Lucia, has said regardless of who has to pay their workers, they will be agitating to get 100% severance pay for their membership.
From our standpoint, something has to give. These employees, many of them have been working with that airline for over 10, 15, 20 years. You have the pilots, you have the flight attendants, you have the ground staff that have been languishing now for months, and something must give. We note that the administrator had asked the regional governments to bear the burden, but whether the governments agree to that or not, we are going to be pushing in the direction that the employees get 100% of their their severance entitlements and the vacation computations that were done by the company recently.
General Secretary Johan Hayward says the union continues dialogue to ensure the workers receive what is due to them.
Most of them, if not all of them, I should say, have been made redundant based on the fact that the airline has not been operating, although there was a limited schedule that was started sometime in December. But as of now, the statutory obligations of the company and the estate of the company still remains in terms of the payments of severance and vacation pay and other statutory entitlements. We've had regional meetings at the level of the administrator who was appointed by the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court. These meetings continue, and we should be having another meeting sometime next week with the regional unions and the administrator.
The administrator says that as of April 30th, 2020, the total unpaid entitlements to employees across the region amounted to EC $119,006,962. Reporting for Hot 7 News, I am Genevieve Gonzalez.
Minister with responsibility for telecommunications, Guy Joseph, during a handing over ceremony of MiFi devices and e-books to the Ministry of Education, explained that the government is working on ensuring that their promise to improve ICT across St. Lucia is fulfilled.
There is definitely a bigger plan that eventually we would have the level of internet penetration to every household in St. Lucia. Because you have the other programs where Wi-Fi services are becoming available at public institutions, in the squares and community centers in various communities. And I know that with what the Taiwanese government is doing along with the government of St. Lucia and what we would be doing along with the NTRC, that even outside of these 5,000 households and those who would be getting the MiFi devices, that there would be another layer where in public places you would have access to free Wi-Fi.
He says the transition within government departments has already begun.
More and more services are becoming available online. So in the transport department, we now have 17 services available online. So even while we have scaled down activities in terms of person to person, a lot of these services are becoming available online because we are definitely moving swiftly to the e-platform of government.
During the ceremony, 5,000 Learn books and 5,000 MiFi devices were given. Joseph explained that more packages will soon be delivered.
We have a second set of packages that would be coming out from Flow, which is going to reach another 5,000 households in St. Lucia with a package of local channels, also with some data included in it. So if you look at just what is happening here, you would see that we would increase the level of penetration with internet access to a fair percentage of the households in St. Lucia. And the persons who would qualify would fall within a certain economic bracket, and that is being determined along with the Ministry of Equity.
That was Telecommunications Minister Guy Joseph. Stay with us, there's more news coming up after the break.